I wanted to become a teacher, to share my love of learning, to teach language arts and math, and encourage kindness. But I didn't sign up to be a revolutionary. Yet we have cloak terms like equity being used to push critical race theory beliefs on students and teachers. During innocent read-alouds, students are being asked to identify characters based on their skin color, to talk about injustices they may face because of their skin color, and teachers are being given scripted questions like, I wonder why many white people didn't want Black people to have an education. These conversations wouldn't happen naturally among 7 and 8-year-olds, and they're harmful.
Joining me today is Jen Tafuto. She is a former Connecticut teacher who recently resigned over concerns about what was being taught in the classroom. Jen, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Samantha.
Of course. Now, I first came across your video that you posted about why you were resigning, and you said that you felt more like a political activist than a teacher in your own classroom. You had been teaching for 6 years. Can you tell us, what exactly essentially was your breaking point? Was the curriculum changing over the last couple of years? Sort of walk us through what exactly happened.
Sure. So, yes, in the past few years, especially the last year, there's been such a push on this equity curriculum. It seemed to be a priority over, learning regressions that were inevitable with COVID and just over academic curriculum in general. Obviously, I taught academics throughout the day, but we had this block that was designated for equity. And in this block, we were given read alouds to read with our students and prompts, questions, thought-provoking, conversation starters that were just not suitable, in my opinion, for 7 and 8-year-olds. And my breaking point, it's really hard to pinpoint because it had kind of been building up. I had felt uncomfortable with a lot of the conversations as a teacher, in addition to like the staff meetings and the professional development where this work was being pushed as well. So it's hard to pick one particular instance, but I think, and I've said this before, some of the questions were really questioning my integrity as a teacher, saying things such as, I mentioned this earlier, I wondered if as a teacher, do I always make sure the Black boys in my classroom matter? And to me, that was almost like a kick in the gut. I had always wanted to be a teacher. It was a dream of mine. And to question my moral integrity about why I became a teacher, that it was really hard. And, I felt like it was really pitting my students against each other. And it's work that I just didn't want to support anymore. And so that's why I decided to, take this bittersweet leap and leave the classroom.
Yes, and you just mentioned staff meetings. I'm curious as to how your fellow teachers have been responding to you resigning. Have any other teachers considered resigning over the curriculum?
That's a great question. It's something that I am so impressed with. I've received so much support from teachers still within districts, teaching under that same administration, just like, saying they're so proud of me and they support and they back everything I've been saying. I just find it really eye-opening and kind of sad because a lot of the messages have been in support, and then they continue to say, I wish I could say this. I want to reflect on these meetings and say how I truly feel, but I'm scared. And for me, I appreciate their support, but it makes me sad for them that they don't feel like they can speak out. I feel like there's almost this sense of paranoia going on where teachers are being forced to adhere to this work or to be complacent, even if they don't agree with it.
You brought up how some teachers might be afraid to speak up. Are they afraid of getting fired for speaking up? Are they afraid of being, shunned by other teachers? What are the potential consequences there?
I think both. I think the fear of being labeled is definitely a real fear. And anyone getting reprimanded is also a fear. They don't want to be targeted and losing their job as well, for sure.
And I saw that you also have a daughter. I'm not sure how old she is exactly, but I'm sure as a teacher and what you're going through right now, you're obviously aware of what's being taught in school. Are you considering now homeschooling her? When she's at the age to attend school, or maybe moving her to a different school district?
She's young. She's only 17 months.
Okay,
So we
not
won't
in
have to
school
think
yet.
about that for a while, right?
Mhm.
But absolutely, I think that I would definitely look to pursue other options if the public schools will still be pushing this curriculum on kids. I
Yeah,
would not feel comfortable with it.
and then just more broadly, I mean, as we were talking about with COVID, a lot of kids were online. And I think parents became more aware of what their students or what their kids were being taught in school. Now that it's September, kids are back in school. A lot of parents are going back into the office, might not be aware of what their kids are being taught. What's your message to them on how they can stay on top of what's being taught in their schools?
It's a valid concern. I had a parent of a student last year contact me this morning and, jokingly said, "Can
Mm.
you homeschool our daughter for the year?"
Wow.
Because I was fully remote last year and I had a lot of parents listening in. Some parents, this one in particular, had reached out in concern with some of the work that was being pushed on her kid. And my message for them is to speak up. It is your right to want your child to have the best education possible. And you deserve to know that they are going to a safe place where you agree with what's being taught. And so I think that for now, they need to speak up, go to the school board meetings, sign the pledges. I talked this morning about the 1776 action
Mhm.
pledge for citizens as well as educators. It's really important to just speak up and pledge that you don't agree with this work and that it is doing inevitable harm for our kids.
Did you ever see an opportunity to speak up and change the curriculum? Was there ever a point where you were able to push back and express that you didn't agree with what was being taught?
Not really. There was definitely opportunities for feedback, reflection on some of the trainings and whatnot. But like I had said earlier, that same sentiment where teachers are scared to even reflect because it could be anonymous, but you just never know.
Mhm.
And I think there's always that fear of being labeled or reprimanded. And that's why, to be honest, I chose to resign in a very respectful manner. I simply emailed them saying I was looking to pursue other opportunities, which is true.
Mhm.
I never intended to bash the school district where I taught. I've enjoyed my students and their families and learning in the diverse community where I taught. But unfortunately, this is what's taking place, and it's work that I don't support, and that's really why I decided to speak out eventually.
Well, Jen, I know that your video is continuing to gain traction, and I'm sure parents across the country are seeing it, and maybe they are willing to speak up if they don't agree with something that's being taught. Thank you so much for joining me today and speaking about why you resigned and what's happening right there in Connecticut. So, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.